selfish. But you are more than that. You have always been more than what others saw. You are more than that.
I had heard of this claim before regarding Kratos, that he's somehow soft or not as much of a badass anymore, I guess, in the new installments of the God of War games. But I recently talked about this again with some guys on Discord. If you're watching this, you know who you are. And I was reminded of this insane argument and wanted to explore it a bit more on here as well. So the claim is that the new Kratos is now soft because he's a dad and people just miss the old rage-filled Kratos who went after the gods themselves and everyone feared him. And to me, this is an insanely flawed argument for many reasons, but mainly because this is a super hypocritical stance considering Kratos was a father before, was super affectionate with Calliope, or Calliope I guess in English, and his wife Lysandra, as those two were amongst the few that did not fear him. He carved a flute for Calliope, spent time with her, and even defied Spartan law to try and find a cure for her illness. And let's not forget the fact that the only reason he went after the gods in such an unhinged and rage-fueled way in the first place was because they betrayed him and also tricked him into unaliving his own daughter and wife. So he saw red and went after everyone and everything, disregarding the consequences. In short, he was after revenge. Another reason why this argument seems flawed to me is because the first games took place in Kratos' late 20s to early 30s and ended with him being around the age of 50. So in the new 2018 God of War, he's about 1050 to 1060 years old. Of course he's not the same foolish boy that was mad at the world and wanted to destroy everything without a care about who or what would be affected. And I'm not saying this happened overnight, of course, but a literal millennia has passed. I think anyone could lay to rest whatever made them mad 1000 years ago and learn from that experience. What is more, he's not only an immortal god with an endless amount of time to get over his anger issues, but a Spartan as well, the literal embodiment of discipline. He lost sight of that, of course, for a while due to the gods tricking him and taking his family from him, but like any good Spartan soldier, he disciplined that monster he had become and learned to make it bend to his will and not the other way around. He still uses extensive brutal force on others when needed, and yes, even gods, but this time not blindly, but to protect those he loves and cares about. And he fears going back to that monster because it took him a while to discipline it into obedience. I would liken this to anyone who has struggled with addiction of any kind before and has managed to overcome it. Eventually, you learn to control it, but the fear of getting back to that awful place will never really leave you. And even if we were to disregard all the lore and game-related arguments, this is the definition of a true man, at least from this woman's perspective. Because a guy using force 24/7 indiscriminately without a care about who or what he destroys along the way is not a man, but a savage. An immature, edgy little emo boy that's mad at the world and full of insecurities. A man who is a quote-unquote monster, aka someone who knows the full power he possesses and has wrestled with himself to control all said power and only chooses to unleash that raw power to protect his family and loved ones? I mean, that is the definition of a true man. A strong man who has let wisdom temper his power. He can still cause serious damage to anyone that poses a threat to his family and loved ones, but isn't aggressive indiscriminately anymore. Also, for the men who call Kratos soft, or whatever, because he's a father and doesn't go ballistic, unaliving anything and anyone that moves within a 30-mile radius of himself anymore, better stop blaming their fathers for not being more present, or saying that the world doesn't let them be themselves or show vulnerability, because if that is the case, then stop promoting this kind of thing yourselves. Why is Kratos soft now? Because he's matured and wants to be worshipped like the god he is? Because he finally sees that he too is worthy of love and admiration despite despite his flaws. I simply do not get it. By this logic, if Kratos manages to become a beloved god of war in the next installment, people would probably call even that gay, which I just don't get it. And of course, there are those who will say, well, only a woman would view this in this way. Well, it seems like only a man would consider a literal god of war soft or gay or whatever simply because he's learned to control himself. I mean, what is soft here exactly? Trying to better himself and treat his son better so he doesn't make the same mistakes as him? Or the fact that he's kind to animals? Or that he kind of likes Freya? Or is it the fact that he's letting his friend have a positive influence on him? Or the fact that he cares about said friend and his feelings? What is soft about any of that? I really don't know. Maybe it's a male way of thinking. I just cannot understand, because logic doesn't seem to be helping me understand this argument at all. So maybe it is a man versus woman thinking kind of thing after all. But let's not forget that there are myths out there about Ares, the actual ancient Greek god of war, that show him showing compassion, being loyal, being a super protective father, especially when it came to Alkippe, because when she was he then offed the offender, knowing he would face trial for it. He was also very involved when it came to his children in general, especially when compared to other gods, and people also forget that there are mentions of him being able to become a peaceful deity for people as well, provided of course that they appease him in the right way, because then he would take their side in a war and allow them to win. So I don't get the hate at all when even the actual ancient Greek god of war was portrayed in more or less the same way in real life. He even had a daughter for whom he was willing to unalive someone in revenge, not even caring about the consequences himself either. I sometimes honestly think that this argument is rage bait or something, because I truly do not get how people even think this is an actual problem in the new games, when the story and the performances by all the actors involved are phenomenal. And while I do agree that Ragnarok had many illogical and clearly ESG compliant additions to it that had no place in the game in the first place, and I do agree with people complaining about that, this argument right here just doesn't make any sense to me. The story, which is what the game is mostly known for anyway, was pretty interesting though, I have to say that. Also, to be completely honest, I'm glad to see a god of war not being clowned on anymore, since in real life myths, Ares was tricked many times. The most prominent example is him being tricked by Athena, or Athena I guess in English, into supporting the Trojans and not the Greeks during the Trojan War. And also most ancient Greek gods were super duper flawed, so I'm glad to finally see one finally learning from his mistakes. In any case, I enjoyed both of the new installments, as did many people judging by the sales, and I cannot wait to see where the story takes us to next. But I'm kind of tired here because the gaming industry is bad enough as it is, so I truly do not see the point of actively trying to find even more things to hate about a game, because apparently all games need to have a controversy to go along with them these days.
Why? Why do you even care? You could have walked away.
The cycle ends here. Must be better than this.